So it's pretty crazy. This is a clip from 10 years ago when I first launched JTV. And today, one of the most commonly discussed topics is, are Jews the chosen people? The concept of Jews are the chosen people. The greatest anti-Semitic podcasters that have been emerging, Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, obsessing over this. This really has become such a hot topic. I think there's a cosmic biblical reason for that, but it's quite remarkable to me that this is actually one of the first questions that I asked on our channel, and I had Rabbi Dr. Akiva Tatz in the studio. Please forgive the pretty shocking logo we had there when we first launched. But I want to show you this clip because I actually think that he gives a pretty strong, comprehensive answer that I think is really useful for us to bear in mind when discussing this topic. I think it's quite a beautiful answer, actually, that he gave, understanding what do we mean by chosen people. Some will say this is racist, the idea of a biological inheritance. Rabbi Tats, I think, really gave quite a powerful answer, but not just about what it is, but also how those who are hostile to the concept among the nations of the world, those who have a hard time with it, which of course is the root of anti-Semitism according to the Talmud, according to the Jewish tradition, how they can come to finally reconcile themselves to it and embrace the concept. Because of course, if you're meant to be a light to the nations, that means you're a blessing, not a curse. Have a watch what Rabbi Dr. Akiva Tats says. And by the way, if you haven't already, please do hit the subscribe button, like this video, comment and hype. All these things really helped us to grow. Thanks so much. Have a watch. Welcome to Jewish Wisdom on JTV, the global Jewish channel. I'm delighted to be joined by the rabbi, doctor, author, thinker, philosopher, I don't know what else there is, Akiva Tats, who joins us today. I want to start off with a question which was submitted to us, and this is quite a controversial topic, I guess, which is that the Jewish people are sort of self-described, at least in the Bible, as a chosen people. Some would say, at the very least, this is an arrogant term, at most even a racist term. Some even argue that it's a cause of anti-Semitism, that Jews describe themselves as a chosen people. How have you understood this? How would you frame this?
Yes, I think the main issue here is to unwind some of the misunderstandings, of course. I'm not sure we refer to ourselves as chosen, although the Bible certainly refers to us as unique. Segula, that word means having unique qualities. And there's no question that we certainly regard ourselves that way. But I think the background issue to understand is that the Jewish view of reality is that everybody's unique in some way. In other words, we pride ourselves on our unique role and identity within the human family. But that's not to say that everyone doesn't have a unique role. In other words, the way you find it put in all biblical sources is people are referred to as individuals, members of families, members of a tribe, members of the Jewish people, members of the human race. And at each of those levels, concentric layers of identity, you have something unique to contribute. And therefore, our greatness is that the Jewish people is expressed as a unique nation that has a particular role to fulfill in humanity. But in the very same breath, our sources talk about the fact that there are 70 different national groupings in the world, each of which is playing a different instrument in the symphony, without which the whole symphony wouldn't be complete.
So where does this name chosen people come from then?
Well, the term used in prophetic writings is segula. Segol means something that is uniquely defined, a unique and beautiful quality. But the real depth of it is that we have a unique quality among the family of nations. For example, we have a famous source in the Gaon of Vilna who talks about 35 Western nations and 35 Arab nations, Ishmael nations and Esav nations, right? And those 70 together with us, 71, make up a full panorama of what mankind is. Our special role is supposed to be a direct connection to the Creator, to God. Each of the other nations has a unique national characteristic to bring to the party, if you like. There's one source in the Talmud that says that the reason that we were exiled was to find converts. It's well known that Judaism does not look for converts. So one of our great commentaries, Rav Tzadok Cohen, explains that when the Talmud says we were exiled among the nations to find converts, at a very deep level it means to bring home elements of beauty, of culture from other nations, that all should be unified in a unified humanity. So the French and the Italians, and each nation has their own culture, their own language, their own take on reality. Right? And without bringing all those into a unity, mankind's incomplete. So when we talk about ourselves as special, it has to be seen on the background of regarding everyone as special. Right? On the contrary, our role is to try to unite all of those unique facets of humanity into something composite and beautiful. Chosen doesn't mean that we to play a role and no one else means anything. On the contrary, If you like, from a spiritual perspective, our unique role is supposed to be some sort of organizer, conductor, central focus around which mankind can unite in its spiritual activities. So is that racist? Maybe it is, but our conception of reality is that each race, each family, each gender, for that matter, should have a unique and very, very well expressed role. We're not looking for sameness.
So how are you specifically defining the Jewish role?
Well, our deep sources, and especially Kabbalistic ones, say that what our special quality is, which means our role, of course, needs to be actualizing that quality. Our unique quality is savoring and relishing and building a direct connection with the Creator, not through intermediaries. That's our specialty.
And are we therefore saying that you have to be Jewish in order to bring this direct connection to God into the world?
Exactly the opposite. Because each part of humanity has an essential role to play, we encourage each facet of humanity to play their role. And for that reason, if a person wants to convert to Judaism, we say you don't need it. There's a set of rules that the Torah lays out for non-Jews. It's called the Noahide Commandments. But if you fulfill that perfectly, the Rambam says categorically, Maimonides, that every non-Jew has a share in the world to come like a Jew, provided you fulfill your role connected to a transcendent source. And therefore, we discourage converts actively. If a non-Jew is so bent on conversion and they're convinced this is the only path for them, conversion's valid. You can't call us exclusionary and racist if we accept converts from those who would like to, but we don't encourage it. It's not necessary.
So in a sense, Judaism is actually one of the least exclusive religions, in the sense that we say you're able to have a connection to God without necessarily being part of the religion.
Absolutely. I'm not aware of other religions that say you don't need to be part of us, you can be part of the kingdom of heaven. Our teaching is explicitly do not need to be part of us. On the contrary, play your unique role. A well-adjusted human being is somebody who fulfills what his natural talents and skills are and not hankers after something else. But if a person feels he needs to convert, and the Kabbalists explain that a convert to Judaism was originally part of our group soul that got lost. So if this soul feels he's finding his way back, he's accepted as a convert.
And finally, just one last thing on this topic. I mean, of all the roles to have in history among the nations, to be the nation whose role it is to bring a direct connection of God into the world. If you think there is a purpose, there is a God, that sounds like the most important role. If we're describing ourselves as having that role, is there not a sense at which that is therefore sort of self-described superiority?
If you see that as superior, I would not be stubborn. I wouldn't argue about that. That is what's unique and great about us, no question. But let me remind you again that unless the circuit is closed at all points, the electricity doesn't flow. If that orchestra has one instrument that's faulty, the music doesn't happen. In other words, we can fulfill that role as coordinator, if you like, of the spiritual project of mankind, only if every other piece is filling its role perfectly.
Right.
So that's very important. So is it racist? Maybe it is. Is it exclusionary? No. Is it very special, our role? Yes, it is.
Okay. Well,
and again, let's not forget that any non-Jew who feels he wants to be or she wants to be part of that particular unique facet of humanity, they want all the Jewish obligations and all its responsibilities, they can convert.
Just quickly, we've all heard of heaven, hell, and the afterlife, and at some point I'm sure you've given it some thought. But the Jewish view is radically different from almost everything you've been taught. And once you hear it, it will change how you understand life itself. Have a watch of the trailer for our new JTV Plus documentary called Heaven, Hell, and the Afterlife, and you can watch the full film right now by clicking the link below in the video description. Across the world, the afterlife is described in simple terms. Heaven above, hell below, the devil waiting to tempt you, and a humanity born in original sin. But Judaism tells a story that is older, deeper, and far more hopeful. Less obsessed with fear and more rooted in purpose. A story where the soul is not born guilty, but born noble. Where the body is not the enemy, but the partner. Where the devil isn't God's rival, but his assistant, because Judaism has no second power. Where hell exists, but not forever. Where heaven exists, but not as the final destination. And where the real end of the human story is resurrection, not escape. Judaism views history as a mission, not a mistake. Other civilizations teach that we are here to earn our way into heaven. Judaism teaches that we are here to bring heaven down to earth. And to understand what happens after we die, we first have to understand why we're here in the first place. In this JTV Plus documentary, we're going to reveal the Jewish vision of life after death. One of the most misunderstood ideas, but if understood correctly, can transform your very understanding of life itself. To watch this JTV Plus documentary and access much more premium content, click on the link in the video description.